everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Andrea. It's nice to have you guys here. Today I'm doing a tag video. It's a very long overdue tag video. Both Anytime and Lindsay McDonald tagged me in this a while ago, last year. I'm finally sitting down to do it, and it is the Would You Rather author tag. So, would you rather questions with an author perspective, and I thought this would be fun. So I was very glad that they both thought enough to tag me. So I'm just gonna dive right into it, or this is going to be a really long video. So, would you rather have a male main character or a female main character? Female, you know, they say write what you know, and I don't know anything about being a man, so I feel more comfortable having male supporting characters, but since the main character, I don't know, it'd be an interesting challenge to write a male main character, but yeah, I always tend to do female. Would you rather wake up before dawn every day to write, or stay up into the early morning hours to write? I mean, if we're pretending that all I do is write and that I'm not also a PhD student and a teacher and I can write whenever I want, I'd probably be more of an afternoon and evening writer. I'm not a morning person at all, but because writing is not my full-time job, I do it whenever I can, which lately has not been that much, but like there was a time where when I was, before I think I was doing my master's, but I wasn't yet doing a PhD. I was teaching at the community college, and I would leave about 15 minutes earlier than I technically needed to go to class, and I'd go to Starbucks and I'd get a coffee for class, but then I'd sit for 15 minutes in Starbucks and I'd write. And so it was 15 minutes twice a week, and even if I didn't find any other time, then at least I had that time. So I will write whenever I can. I need to get back into a habit like that, you know, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, just something every day. Would you rather write a book that is torturous to write but which is very popular, or write a book that is fun to write but which is only known by a small audience? Well, I mean, define torturous. Sorry, I keep checking. I hope I'm in focus, but I'm wearing my contacts today. So, torturous, I don't know, I think one of the girls said this. Can I write the torturous book that is very popular and presumably makes me a lot of money, and then write the fun book that hardly anybody reads? I think that's probably what I would choose to do. I don't know. Again, I kind of need you to define torturous for me. Like, are we saying it's absolutely hell on earth, or just it's a real challenge and there's lots of writer's block? And because that can be very rewarding when you have something that you're really struggling with and it is kind of torturous, but then you get it done and it's amazing and you've accomplished that. So I probably would lean more towards that one. Anything that's easy typically isn't worth having. So, yeah. Would you rather write a sci-fi story or a fantasy? Fantasy, hands down. I don't know enough science to do sci-fi. I feel like I'd have to do a lot of research to make the sci-fi be plausible, because that is something that I struggle with some sci-fi, especially if it's at least somewhat grounded in 21st century science. But fantasy, it's fantasy, so you can make everything up. Would you rather use first person or third person? I tend to write in the third person. I'm trying to think, but I think everything I've written creatively is third person, because I like to be able to get in the heads of the other characters, and I feel like when it's first person, you're entirely stuck inside the head of that first person. So third person, I feel, gives me a bit more flexibility, but I've thought about writing in the first person before, and I think that would be an interesting challenge. I do have at least one idea for a novel that would be first person, so maybe I'll do that eventually. I mean, any character of any book/short story in real life for one day, or personally know any author you wish. Well, personally know means that we probably get to become friends of some sort, so it's more than just a one-day thing. I'd probably go with that picking the author is a bit more of a challenge. For some reason, J.K. Rowling is sticking out in my head. Maybe because I just love her on Twitter right now. She is just killing it on Twitter at the moment. So yeah, I'll go with her for now. Number 7, would you rather only be able to write your book in scenes from end to beginning, or only be able to write it in scenes that jump around in the timeline randomly? It would be a fun challenge to write something that jumps around a lot. Would you rather only be able to write dialogue if you act out the voices out loud, or only be able to write action if you act it out in real life? I mean, acting things out in real life would probably be a bit difficult after a while, especially if you're writing fantasy. So I'd probably say act out the voices out loud, because I already kind of do that when I write. Should I admit that on YouTube? I don't always act the voices out loud, but I tend to hear the dialogue in my head. My writing process is kind of very cinematic almost, like I've got a film reel in my head, and so I see and hear everything as I'm writing it, and I tend to replay it in my head a few times to kind of work things out, and then I'll write it. So yeah, I'll probably act out the voices. Would you rather publish with the most successful publishing house in your genre, but have to wait 2 years to see your book in print, or self-publish with no expense or marketing assistance, but see your book in print within 3 months? This is almost a whole separate video. I personally would probably rather wait 2 years to see my book in print. That's really not that different from academic publishing, which I'm already kind of used to. So self-publishing is great, and self-publishing is a great way to get stuff out there. And if you have a decent following on social media and can market it yourself, then it could still be pretty successful. But I have yet to hear of anyone becoming a breakout success and getting on any kind of bestseller list through self-publishing. I kind of feel like if it is an either or choice, because I've thought about this, like, should I try self-publishing? And I might one day, but I kind of feel like I'd rather try to exhaust all other traditional possibilities first, just because I have heard that it can be more difficult to get picked up by a bigger company if you've already self-published. I don't know how true that is, but I can kind of see there being some truth in that. Before doing self-publishing, I'd have to really think about that, but honestly 2 years isn't really that long, and if you've then got the power of a successful publishing house, I feel like that would work out better in the long run. That would probably be my choice. Would you rather write a goofy story or write a serious story? I tend to write more serious stuff. I like putting comedy in where I can find it, but I don't consider myself to be a very funny person to begin with, so I'm not sure that I could really successfully write a goofy story. I'm a little bit better at serious stories, I think. Would you rather have an authorial voice that always sounds like the narrator from Planet Earth, or have an authorial voice that always sounds like Captain Kirk? The narrator from Planet Earth, totally. Yeah, no, Captain Kirk doesn't belong anywhere near anything that I write. That would make it a goofy story indeed. Would you rather write a story knowing that you will have to kill off the main character eventually, or write a story knowing that everyone the main character is close to you will eventually have to kill off? So the main character or everyone around the main character. I mean, I could probably come up with an idea for both ways. Probably the main character, because I feel like I could do that in a way that... And now there's a plane flying over. I don't live that far from a small airport, so... Yeah, probably the main character. That being said, I don't think I would ever do that. But if I had to choose one or the other, I can think of an idea for killing off a main character that wouldn't make my readers completely hate me. So I'd probably go with that. Killing off all the characters around the main character is just a bit harsh. I don't like killing off characters anyway. I don't think I'd ever write that kind of story. Would you rather leave your ending somewhat open and bittersweet, or leave your ending on a cliffhanger? I mean, it depends on if there's going to be a second story. If there's not going to be a second story, I like to wrap everything up. I don't know. I think It doesn't say anything about there being like a sequel to the book. So if it's end, do you leave your audience completely hanging and wondering what happens, or do you leave it open and bittersweet? Probably open and bittersweet. I've seen some films like that, and I actually kind of like it when you're left to kind of think about the ending. So yeah. Have your cover art designed by Tim Burton or your cover designed by Stan Lee? Thinking about what I've written so far, I think Tim Burton would probably be a slightly better choice, so we'll go with him. Write in many different genres or write only in one genre? Many different genres, absolutely. The two things that I've written so far are the one that's finished and the one that's currently in progress. One is a fantasy, kind of supernatural book, and the other is a contemporary romantic comedy, so I'd rather be able to do a bunch of different things. Would you rather have all of your characters have some physical deformity, or have all of your characters have some internal twisted nature? I mean, define internal twisted nature. I keep asking for definitions for all of these questions. I think there's a lot of things you could do with internal twisted natures, so I'd probably choose that. Number 17, have an orphaned main character with good friends, or a main character with a good-sized family and family problems. I mean, family problems are always fun to write about, and most of us know something about family problems, so I'd probably go with that one. Question 18, write the sex scene or not write the sex scene? I'm a bit old-fashioned, so probably not write the sex scene. I like things that leave stuff up to your imagination. Write about uncertain dangers and intrigue, or write about direct confrontation and violence? Probably uncertain dangers and intrigue. That sounds like something that would get my imagination going a bit more. And then the final question, would you rather have to answer any question put to you by your fans, or have no fans asking you questions? I totally want fans. Fans means people are reading my books and that my books have been published. Hush! Sometimes it's super quiet around here, and sometimes it's Armageddon outside. Yeah, I would much rather have fans that are asking me questions and that I have to kind of answer and address. I kind of like the whole fan communities around books that I read, so I think it would be interesting to have that relationship, and I'd love to have that relationship. You know, people reading what I write and giving me feedback. I'm not sure I would ever directly change something that I was writing because of fan feedback. Like, I wouldn't take their suggestions as directions of what to write, but I would definitely listen to it and tweak things, and I'd, you know, if they have a good idea, I'd probably find a way of kind of adjusting it and making it fit what I'm doing. So, you know, you're not writing in a bubble if you're being published. You're writing for an audience. And so you do have a certain amount of responsibility to give the audience what they want. So if the audience is saying, do not kill this character off at the end, you probably shouldn't kill that character off at the end. Or if they really want, you know, two characters to get together and live happily ever after, you know, if enough of the readership is demanding that, you should seriously consider that, and there should be a good reason to not do that if you choose not to. So I get really annoyed when authors clearly aren't listening to their audience, because who do they think is buying their books and supporting their career, and presumably in the future buying tickets to the film adaptation, right? So as a writer, as a publishing writer, you should be listening to your readers because they are the ones supporting your career, and that's not something to take lightly. That's my thought on that. So those are the questions. Thank you, Annie and Lindsay, for tagging me. This was really interesting tag to do. I had a lot of fun. I will link both of their videos as well as all the questions down below. I know Shannon from Pages and Polish writes, so I'm definitely going to tag her. And I'm trying to think of who else. I would have tagged Annie and Lindsay, but they beat me to it. So I don't know who else writes, but if you write and if this tag has been interesting to you, then I tag you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you thought it was interesting, leave me a comment down below. Maybe if you write but you don't want to do the whole tag, answer some of the questions in the comments. It'd be fun to hear other people's perspectives, or just your thoughts as a reader. Like, answer some of the questions when authors do this, do some of these, or make some of these choices. What do you like and what do you not like as a reader? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I will see you again very soon in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.